Watching the Daily Report, State of the Nation, with my guest, the gentleman here in studio, to you, Kebaso.
Yes.
And as you respond to this question by this viewer who is asking about activism, do you think that perhaps you're getting molded into the older, boomers type of activism, that then the new age or new life, or how the fresh blood that perhaps people would expect to see, that Kasmel was speaking to earlier, the expectation is not as had been expected?
Yeah, my biggest worry is that we were trying to do systemic change. Because my position on this particular matter has always been that changing the leaders in themselves is not a solution to the problem. This is more of a systemic problem. And I even tweeted about it and asked, should we be removing President William Ruto alone, or should we be removing the system that makes people like President William Ruto president? Because at the end of the day, if we do not accept that this is a systemic problem, we are not going to solve it. So I do believe that our activism has played a huge role in terms of bringing civic education closer to people, and them having a better understanding of how their government is run and what they should expect from government. But I don't believe that our activism has had any impact on the political leadership of our country. I don't think that our president, now because of our activism, is now speaking more truth than lies, or that he has now better managed the economy, or that extrajudicial killing and abduction has stopped because of the Gen Z activism, or that theft and wastage of public funds has stopped because of the Gen Z activism. So in terms of political change and in terms of governance change, nothing has happened. Things are still the same. Most of what they say in public and commit in public just ends there. It really never gets done, because even the president committed himself that abductions, Mambo abductions, itaisha, and just recently bodies were retrieved from city mortuaries of people who disappeared on the 17th of December and that now have been found dead. So in my thinking, there are two parts to this story: the government story and the people's story. On government, nothing has changed. The leaders are still behaving the same way. But on the part of the people, I'd like to agree with Dismas that the people have become more exposed, more aware, and that we are going to see a change in terms of how they make their decisions. What probably I like to say is, the Gen Zs, me being one of them, I want to encourage them not to be just voters, but to also offer themselves for leadership. Because, sometimes you complain so much, but you're not offering yourself to be a solution to the problem. So, you see what Morara is doing wrong. But are you able to step up and step in and say that I'm going to take up this space and I'm going to participate in leadership?
Okay.
And one of the biggest barriers towards young people participating in politics is about the cost of doing politics in Kenya. Politics is very, very expensive. It is extremely expensive. If I tell you how much I've spent just from September to date on politics, it's about...
Are you doing politics or activism?
It's political activism. So I don't see the difference.
How much? You are at the figures.
You see, activism is seeking change. Politics is just a science of influence. You're just influencing people. But when you are a political activist, you are influencing people towards social political change. It has costed more than 13 million.
Really?
Yes, that's what Inject Party has spent just since September to now. Now, how many young people can afford that or have that kind of money? I will tell you that it is 1% of the population. Most of the young people don't have jobs. They don't have businesses. They can't even be given loans in banks. So if you look at the expense of becoming a politician, or of taking leadership, or becoming a member of parliament or a senator, even if you don't dish out money to people, just traveling and logistics, the millions is something that young people do not have. So if they don't step up and step in and start changing the story of campaign financing in our politics, they are never going to have a chance. They will be complainers. Then after complaining, they vote for the same people they've been complaining about.
Let me take it to Husband and then to Dismas. Yeah. You seem to disagree.
I totally disagree. I mean, that's not the direction to take Kenyans, to make Kenyans believe that you have to have 13 million in a span of 3 months for you to play politics. Politics is simply about allocation and distribution of resources. So anyone who elects an MCA is in politics. And the question that we should be asking ourselves, do they know the reason why they're giving that MCA the power? They're giving that MCA the power to legislate at the local level, to oversight the distribution and allocation of resources by the governor, and basically to represent, the people. But let me tell you, the problem that we have today, it might be governance, it might be anything. But the root cause of the problem is that we want to operate in silos and say, I spend 13 million, I'm doing an amazing stuff. People have to amass resources for them to do what I'm doing. It is deceiving Kenyans. In the run-up to the first multi-party elections in this country, and the reason why we keep talking about Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Masinde Muliro, and Kenneth Matiba is very simple. They were surrounded by young people, young, brilliant, energetic, much more brilliant than the generation that we have today. Now, these young Turks addressed issues. The issue that Caswell is addressing are the same issues that Morara is addressing, are the same issues that Dismas is talking about. Same issues. What is the difference? The generation that we have today, they want to go into different directions. What happened during Matiba, Masinde Muliro, and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga's days? They had Ford before it had those splinters of Ford Kenya and Ford Asili.
Yeah.
The likes of Paul Mwiche, Gitobwi Manyara, James Orengo, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, they came together, they were young, and they knew they were dealing with a generation that was wise because that generation had seen the transition from colonialism to independence, and they knew where they were taking this country. And Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was on record. I mean, people were around Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the likes of Dr. Mukisa Kitui, were on record that the thing that distinguished Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was the young people who were around him, who distinguished themselves by articulating issues and helping these leaders who are at the twilight of their lives, focus on nothing but issues. Most of the young generation that we have today, you tell them that Ford Kenya was the official opposition leader after the 1992 general election, they won't believe. It is the same Ford Kenya that we have today. But who were the luminaries in Ford Kenya? They were not just from one political, region. They were not just from one tribe. They were individuals who were not as resourced as the MPs that we have today, but they were individuals who were brought together by ideology.
Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
After the 1992 general election, there was a by-election in Mombasa. I think it was in Kisauni. There was another by-election in Migori constituency where I come from. Migori has since, produced 4 constituencies: Suna East, West, Uriri, and I think Awendo. Now, the person who won in Migori defected to Kanu immediately. He won on a Ford Kenya ticket. And then Professor Rashid Mzee won in I think it's in Sauni or Mvita, I can't quite remember. Won, and the late Karisa Maitha challenged that. Now, if you go back to history and look at the people who went down to Migori, where I grew up, and Mombasa, to campaign, to ensure that the guys who were influenced to jump back to Kanu were defeated, there were people from all over this country. They went there because there was a cause. They needed ideologically reformist individuals in parliament. That is what we are lacking. That when you ask the majority of people, do they have the thinking of the Mukisa Kituis of this world, who forced President Moi, of Gitobwi Manyara, who forced President Moi to repeal Section 2A of the Constitution? They don't. And the reason why they don't is everyone is looking for an opportunity to create their own path.
Allow me to jump in.
What we need is an opportunity to create a common pathway that will address the plight of every Kenyan, irrespective of where they are. And no one has to tell us that they're doing it more than any other person, or they're spending more.
If you can,
they need to tell us what are the issues that they're addressing and how those issues unite all Kenyans, irrespective of where they are.
Let this must come. Then now you'll respond to
Maringa, no. Okay. I think it's important to maintain some level of decency and discipline. The reason why elections in Kenya are very expensive is not because elections are designed to be expensive, is that a majority of the people who run for political office have got challenges presenting ideas to the people. If you present ideas in a solid manner, Because politics, by definition, is selling ideas to influence the voters to vote in a particular direction. Now, if you've got a capacity to present ideas in the political marketplace and persuade people, voters will actually give you money. During the last election, we saw a governor, I think in Bomet or Kericho, people did a fundraiser. They actually gave him resources. And recall in the US at some stage when Barack Obama was campaigning, because then he didn't have much resources. Even at some stage, his credit card was rejected. But people said, hey, this is a good man. He can become president. And they gave him resources for campaign. Obviously, you need bare minimum resources for logistics. But look at the typical Kenyan politician. They want to be flamboyant. They're the ones who are using choppers, jumping from one point to another, using choppers, using top-of-the-range vehicles. You'll find a politician has got a motorcade of 10 vehicles, top-of-the-range vehicles, gas guzzlers. Obviously, it will be expensive. Now, because majority of these politicians have no intellectual capacity, they cannot present ideas. Instead of attracting people to come to their rallies, they now give them standing allowances. People are paid to come and stand. People have to be, I think in your village, there's a language they use that after Gonya, you know. So when you're a politician, you don't even understand your political party manifesto. After your party leaders launched it, you don't understand the contents of the manifesto. But when you go to a rally, you just tell 1,000 people, make a line, I give you 1,000 bob. Not long ago, you saw a senator, I think from Western Kenya, Kisumu, giving people resources, giving people money, literally giving people money.
And they had queued.
And they had queued.
Yeah.
At the end of the year,
yes,
which is a sad reality, you find politicians who go do shopping. They invite people to their shopping centers and give them bags with unga, with cooking flour. Now, that is the reason why politics is expensive.
It's expensive.
Because, and as Professor Will has indicated, we've had politicians in Kenya who've been elected on peanuts. I can give examples. Dr. Z. T. Onyonka, from where I come from, he was not a millionaire, he was not a billionaire. He got elected. His son, Richard Onyonka, got elected when he was campaigning. He didn't have much resources. There's a gentleman called George Anyona. I mean, Lawrence Sagini. Fortunately, the examples I know from my constituency. But if you come to the political space and you want to use the status quo,
yes,
you'll end up selling your grandfather's chicken for the campaigns. But if you come and you present noble ideas that people can identify with, they'll flood you with resources, you'll be surprised.
Okay, let's
probably I must have been misunderstood by both of the gentlemen to my far left. What I meant to say is not that resources is the only key towards political mobilization or political success in political office. What I meant to say is this. Dismas has said that most of our politicians are dumb, and because they are dumb, they are unable to present ideas, but because they have money, they give people money in exchange for not giving them ideas. That is inaccurate. It's not true. Most of the people that we have in parliament are actually very brilliant. Some of them have PhDs, others have masters. Our lying president has a PhD. Okay? So the former CS for Treasury, Henry Rotich, is a Harvard alumni. So the politicians that we are dealing with are not dumb. Some of them have gone to Ivy League schools. They are not incapable of presenting ideas. It's not that they are not eloquent. What we are dealing with is a systemic problem where the citizenry does not want ideas intentionally. If you go to the ground, and you know, I'm speaking as somebody who just doesn't come to TV. I go to the ground every single week. Before you talk to people, they want you to buy them this, wekea sisi, mafuta ya pikipiki. You go to a church, you've just come to worship, a fundraiser suddenly happens. There was no fundraiser, but suddenly there's one. Tunahitaji bags 5 za simiti, tunahitaji mabati 10. Until this reality changes, believe you me, it will be very, very difficult for a young person to be in leadership in this country, to occupy a position of leadership.
Okay.
And until we accept what this man has correctly pointed out, the example of Obama, where the governor for Kericho, where we can actually fundraise for candidates. then we are not going to get anywhere until we solve campaign financing. We need to start asking ourselves a question. What is this thing that makes a person spend 300 million to campaign for governor, yet the salary is 1.5 million, and if you calculate the salary for the next 5 years, it's only going to amount to 120 million. So what is making this person spend 300 million? Which love is this that this person has for his constituents?
Okay.
You've seen when we had vetting of cabinet secretaries in parliament, the CSS President William Ruto was appointing to cabinet, and you saw them declare their wealth. What is this that makes this person worth 3, 4, 5 billion want to go and get a job worth 1 million shillings? Because even if he takes just 2 billion shillings and puts it in a fixed deposit account, it will give him more than what he wants to go and seek as a salary of cabinet secretary.
Okay.
And it boils down to this. People steal money for campaigns. Members of parliament are busy stealing CDF funds for the next campaigns. Governors are stealing money for the next campaigns. The president is stealing enough money for the next campaigns. So until we solve this problem of money, first, how do we mobilize our politics? Is it on the basis of money? Are we, when politicians come to us, what expectations do we have on them? Who do we give the microphone? A young person who just walked in may not be given the microphone, but one who came driving a Range Rover, watasema wacha huyo mheshimiwa aseme kitu tusikie vile.
Might you have bowed down to this pressure?
So this is not bowing down to pressure. We are being practical now. We are moving from
because
political analysts are very theoretical. And we are the politicians doing the politics on the ground. So we are practical.
Did you bow down to the pressure?
There is a very big difference between his thesis or his dissertation or his research paper and what is actually happening on the ground, the practicality of the matter. The practicality of the matter is that now we have to find a way to fundraise, not to fundraise for purposes of bribing the electorate, but even for logistics, for moving around, to give young leaders access. Right now, I'm in the process of registering a political party. How many young people can do it? One of the requirements is to open offices in more than 20 counties in the Republic of Kenya. That is money. Very serious money that you cannot just raise. Okay?
Yeah.
So
yeah, Kasimel, did this your party that you joined also went ahead, as your chairman as well, also went ahead to join government in an interesting way, and that has been debated. Do you think that, for instance, issues like the AUC that is coming up, the election that is coming up, and the formation of IEBC were issues that ought to have taken more precedence than what seems to be being presented to Kenyans right now?
First, the Orange Democratic Movement is not in coalition with the current government. And we are happy to be empaneled in a station that understands nuance. And of course, top brass were drawn into cabinet. And that is something I cannot speak to because I speak for a very specific demographic. Yes. When I joined this party, I did not necessarily go to meddle with mainstream affairs. We believe that even as Mwalimu Nyerere said about the Tanzanians, kama Watanzania watapata mabadiliko katika chama chetu cha mapinduzi, wataenda kutafuta hayo mabadiliko kwengine. Sasa, as I'm saying is, I think it is very possible for our youth league to drive this party to capture power in 2027. This youth league of the Orange Democratic Movement does not exist in isolation because it is a national party. It is the largest pro-people party, best organized, even the basic standards of a party. If you think about issues about the AUC chairmanship, which I know very well my party leader is going to clinch because he has done a very robust campaign and he has shown what it takes if you want to vie for these things. He has put in the hard work and I believe that he has the networks and the human capital that's needed for him to clinch the seat. I'm a firm believer that he's going to clinch that seat.
Okay.
On matters, just to take it back on the issue we were talking about, I'd like to respectfully disagree with the party leader of the Inject Party. I do not necessarily think that our biggest problem is around campaign financing. It is a valid concern that cannot be disputed. And I'm very happy that as a young person, he has decided to challenge the status quo specifically along that. Other young people could pick certain issues as we believe, and if we run away, if he runs away with campaign financing, I run away with mobilizing change in the ODM's youth league, and everyone does their part. But the thing, for example, in reflection, the thing that made June 25th such a huge success is we were unified around a particular issue. And unfortunately, at the risk of being controversial, the country believed that that was an ideology.
Okay.
Such that after the bill was dropped, we had this momentum that we did not know what to do with it. Then you find influencers and commercial activists who just want to drive public rage. And you know, it has a very, very specific outfit where go, have an eccentric personality like mine. I'm not an exception. And chant a few slogans, go to the protest, spend 1 or 2 days in jail, and come out. It is a well-oiled machine. It is not like the times when people used to be detained for the ideals they believed in. People used to go to jail and say, for example, and this is why I would have a problem when I hear a certain snake oil salesman saying that he wants to okoa payslip. When my party leader was fighting against the cost of living, and he said that him and his father, the Right Honorable Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, have been disturbing the country for 60 years. The Honorable Jaramogi had a solid ideology. We could point and say, these were socialists. But if you think about our movement, and this is the point I would like us to be pragmatic and say, we do not have a grounding ideology. We know the issues we want to tackle. We know that we do not want corruption, we do not want bad governance, we want accountability in governance, and we want systemic change. However, that is not grounding enough because, and I saw this in NAC because I was a baby. When people were saying yote yawezekana bila Moi, it was not business as usual. My party leader, when he was campaigning he was selling a candidate who was indisposed. But the whole country rallied around this idea that we felt its time had come. And as a wake-up call, youth is not enough of an ideology.
Okay. Because
even all these panelists, they've been young before. And the names they're mentioning are firebrands that have been erased from our history through structure.
Yes.
And I'm in this disagreement, if I say I disagree with the Inject Party leader, I think for me, gone are the days when I would want to get clickbait. I think it is very important for us to sharpen contradictions and find sustainable ways, because it would be very sad for me to see a fellow young man lose 13 million and then fall into the hands of, for example, a rogue police officer or a corrupt somebody somewhere who wants to do a witch hunt on him, while that money he would have used to empower fellow youth that would have been used to. So for me, this is not a disagreement for clicks. It's a sharpening of contradictions and saying, this is what I think you believe in. This is what I believe in from this other side. How can we ensure that with the influence that we have amassed, we drive the conversation into a solid ideology that will change the systems in our country?
Let's drive the conversation to a home stretch because we need to start winding up, and I'll begin with you, and you'll combine that the matters you see with your closing remarks that we come this way as well. Yes, I saw you wanted to respond. No, we will now come to you.
No, I just want to clarify. I did not say politicians are dumb. Yeah. Those are Kebaso's words. In fact, politicians are some of the sharpest human beings alive. Can you imagine convincing a rational human being to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning while it's raining and then they go queue for hours on end to vote for you, knowing
and protect
very well,
the vote.
Yeah, knowing very well that this gentleman is not going to serve your selfish interests. The point I made, and I want to clarify, you may be Harvard educated, you could be Yale, you could be Oxford, like Owila, you could be Daystar, but the majority of the politicians have got challenges presenting ideas. They've got challenges selling ideas to the voters. Now, because they have challenges selling ideas to the voters, they instead give them allowances. And poor Morara, poor Wanjiku falls victim to the allowances. And we keep on saying times above number that the typical politician the typical voter suffers from the Stockholm syndrome. They've fallen in love with their captors. They know very well this man I'm voting for has been certified by the Kenyan authorities as a thief. There is evidence from the judiciary that is a thief, but they go ahead and vote for that kind of person, and then you expect miracles. Now, talking about Mr. Raila Odinga, Raila Odinga has demonstrated without any doubt in anybody's mind that he's got capacity and competence to lead AUC. He's demonstrated. But there's this funny, amorphous, almost illogical kind of conclusion. People saying, wait a minute. Now the conflict in DRC is going to compromise his capacity.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, the Luanda process, led by President Laurencio, started long before Mr. Raila Odinga declared his candidature. The Nairobi process started long before Mr. Raila declared his candidature. So when you have this manufactured Kenyan conversation by cartels and special interest groups claiming that because now President Felix Tshisekedi is working on broken eggshells, that it's going to compromise the votes, then you begin, the people who are making those suggestions, they assume that the people who are going to vote for Mr. Raila Odinga are stupid, that they have no capacity to understand these issues, that they come from Mosocho. I mean, Kenya as a country, you become very funny. We take petty tribal politics from Mosocho, from Kisumu, from Nyaligunga, and we want to export that petty politics to Addis Ababa. He is one of our own, a Kenyan, who has expressed interest in this very serious job. Instead of all of us supporting him, we are saying, wait a minute, the Djibouti candidate is solid. That there is no democracy in Kenya. Have you ever heard of an election in Djibouti?
Yeah.
And the winner gets... so in my view, you know, when President Ruto took office, he said one of the things he's going to do is promote Kenya as an FDI destination, catalyze our exports, and create opportunities for Kenyans' human capital. And it appears that Raila Odinga is one of the biggest beneficiaries that as a Kenyan.
Yes.
And in my view, as I make my concluding remarks,
Yes, please.
if it's possible that we can get as many people out of Kenya, we have said this times above number, it's because of that we got Barack Obama. So for these men on my right who are very ambitious, let them go to Canada, let them go to China, let them go everywhere and not come back to Kenya. So that at some stage when you're having a G20 meeting,
Yes.
the president of World Bank has got Kenyan DNA, the prime minister of UK has got Kenyan DNA, the president of the US has got Kenyan DNA, and that is how we make progress. This idea that, you know, there's a saying in my village that if you don't walk around, you think your mom is the best cook. But when you go to your neighbor, you discover that a GMO and rich is actually better than from your home. So we must go out and conquer the world.
Yes. Husband.
Yes, I think he's referring to Chiemo and Ret in reference to Matoke. So, in case you think it's Matoke,
It's
but
Matoke.
if you move a bit, you realize there's Ret.
Yes.
But let me start with Raila. You know, history is very important. And, you know, the power of your story is also very critical. And the way in which we tell our stories, whether in this age of, you know, a disrupted digital platform or in the past, was by doing the right thing. It is the right thing that then makes your story. And when it is in the past, it is history. So when you look at history and the history of Raila Odinga and what he has done over the years, there is no doubt in my mind that it doesn't matter what Kenyans on social media want to think. It doesn't matter what they say about who is going to win. But the history of what Raila has done, which was presented to the whole world during the Mjadala Africa, it was a gulf between him and the competitor. You could tell that this is a gentleman who understands issues of Africa. And when you dig back and find out what has he done in the past, you find his story told either by what he has done or by people he has impacted. And I think a number of people have also talked about age as a factor. But look at the crisis in Africa today. If you're talking about silencing the guns, you know, the other day there's a professor that I respect who was talking about a 40-year-old, you know, 80-year-old job. What he doesn't know is that for these African heads of state who are going to work with the chair of EUC, they need someone who has the wisdom, someone who has seen it all, someone who is fairly elderly and can see beyond what they can see.
Okay.
And you see, that gives Raila an edge. That edge that people think is an advantage is actually an edge. But finally, let me just say that if you look at the voting patterns and what would happen after the East African, time as the head of AUC, it tells you the voting pattern is likely to favor Raila because the direction towards the next region that is likely to take over power seems to be closer if they go with Raila.
All right.
Lastly, let me respond because there are a few things that were said here. One,
briefly.
Yeah, briefly.
Yes.
One is the politics that you're talking about, that people have to steal for them to win elections. And therefore, people want to amass enough wealth so that they compete these people, which for me is a very interesting way of looking at it. The most practical way for me would be, what is so difficult in going to the electorate and letting the electorate know that, do you know what? If someone is stealing, he is stealing because the people you elected are not doing their work. And start by helping them understand that this is what the governor is supposed to do. This is what the MP is supposed to do. This is what the senator is supposed to do. This is what your local MCA is supposed to do. Today, we live in a country where a constituency that gets the least amount of CDF money gets around 157 million. When people say that MPs steal CDF, it is because they've not socialized with the National Government CDF Act.
Okay.
If conversations went through that direction, I think the likes of Morara can help people understand. Okay. Finally, maybe, because he threw some shades to us, we've been here. In 2007, I was a university student. We had a political party. And I may want to ask him, socialize with a few people who've been there. KJ was there with Vijana Tugutuke. They did their part. Anthony Kibagendi, the current MP for Kitutu Chache, was a party leader as a university student. He is currently a member of parliament. Probably those will offer serious mentorship to sharpen the skills that we have in...
Kasmel and then Kebaso.
It's the music?
Yes. Just go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
I think, in closing, I would like to warn especially the legislators in the Orange Democratic Movement who have decided to depart from the party ideals and have consistently ridden on the coattails of our party leader to try and derail people from the real Kenyan agenda. First of all, we know that once Baba settles in Addis, ya Baba, we want to tell you that we wish you the best. If you decide to stay in Addis, stay in Addis. But in the event that these people who have consistently thought that we would ride on your coattails, and these few hecklers and jokers that I see around trying to think that they will rally Kenyans, we ask you to come back and be our official pallbearer to help us capture power in 2027. But we are saying, as the people of the Youth League of the ODM, we shall canvass the entire country, trying to unify fellow youth and ensure that in this coming election, we shall be where the decisions are being made. We shall not be on the menu, but we shall be part of the people who are determining the direction of this country by being grounded in ideology and being grounded in the national agenda with the backing and the foundation of the constitution of our country.
Kebaso, you get the last word.
Yeah, so... very interesting conversations. I've said my bit. I've learned something by listening to others. Probably what I can say is things they are more difficult than theoretical. Kenyans need to get to a point where they understand that this is not just a leadership problem. That by removing William Ruto and putting Gachagua, or removing William Ruto and putting Raila Odinga, you've not solved the Kenyan problem. It's much bigger than that. And it has been tried before and people have failed, because when we had a problem in Nairobi with Honorable Evans Kidero, people tried replacing him with Sonko, they saw the results. When we had a problem in Kiambu with Kabogo, people tried replacing him with Waititu, they saw the results with that. Probably we need to ask ourselves, which political system is this we've created where Anne Waiguru can steal from NYS and become a governor, where Gladys Bosholei can steal from the judiciary and become a woman who was in Kishu County? We need to ask ourselves, which system is this we've created where Pavel Oimeke can have a corruption case at EPRA and becomes an MP? We need to ask ourselves, which system is this that we've created?
Drop the names.
No, I own them. I can be sued for these are my views, not of TV47.
Oh, okay.
We need to ask ourselves,
wind up. Yeah.
Which system is this that we've created where Daniel Manduku has a corruption case in Kenya Ports Authority and we elect him as an MP?
Kebaso.
We need to ask ourselves, how do these people end up in leadership?
Yes.
Because as long as we are willing to vote for the lesser devil or the one who stole less to replace the one who stole more, we will always end up with bad leaders. We need systemic change and complete change.
Let me run through some feedback here. Morara is simply trying to lock out people from vying from political positions by scaring young ticks, by exaggerating expenditure on unknown campaigns. That is Wesley Wallace. Morara is simply trying to validate he's the right person to vie for presidential seat because he has spent more. Robert Nyaga saying, I agree with Dismas ideology and development do not require bribes from politicians alone. We have seen past political changes where money in form of bribes to Kenyans never existed. Morara should fight the malady of buying voters. It's actually illegal. Show you call it. Mama Kehania from Machakos Mjini. Thank you, Mama Kehania. Why register a political party? I mean, one can run independently in our able constitution. Again, I say we lack honesty, ninja too, and seeing opportunity and losing focus. Morara Kebaso is right. He paints a clear reality. The days of Anyona, Saginis, and Matibas are gone. We need to move away from those olden days. We should keep praying for Morara Kebaso. Jamigori needs to wake up and smell the coffee. Some feedback from Mao. Whether you like it or not, politics is expensive in Kenya, either ukiwa na content, poor or bad. I salute you, Morara Kebaso. Proud of you. On YouTube, Brand Kipruto. Bravo, Morara Kebaso, you're a true hero of this revolution. History will judge you well. Keep it up with the exposure. All the Gen Zs are behind you. Even the ruling class know that you are a needle to move. That is just part of your feedback. We thank you for tremendously contributing to the program tonight. That's all we had time for. And we thank you also for accompanying us even as we took some more time, but the conversation was greater than the time we had. Dismas Mukua, Dr. Hesbon Owila, Kasmal Makaure, and Morara Kebaso. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us as well. My name is George Maringa. Good night from Nairobi. I'll see you next time.